Ready to begin the meeting at, oh my God, we're on time again. It's 9:30. I feel like I ought to stop that. I'm going to have like a efficiency record here of being on time, and I'm never on time. All right, well, thanks everybody for being here, and welcome to everybody who's in person. So I'll call the meeting to order at 9:30 a.m., and welcome to the Standards Board meeting. All right, so first up is recognition of guests. Do we have, I don't see anybody, I don't think, as a guest. All right, and so let's move directly into public comment. And I believe we have 3 people for public comment. All right. Kelly, can you help facilitate that? I think they're all online.
Yes, we will start with Ms. Liz Zogby.
And welcome. We're glad you're here.
Thank you so much. Good morning. My name is Liz Zogby. I'm a special education policy advocate, and I co-chair the Maryland Down Syndrome Advocacy Coalition. Thank you for your ongoing efforts to grow the teacher workforce to support all students. I've listened with interest to your recent discussions about alternative licensure pathways, and I'm here to talk about the post-secondary faculty pathway. As proposed, this pathway would not require any coursework in, among other things, special education, and I'd like to urge the board to reconsider and ensure that all educators are prepared for the expected variability of public high schools, including students with disabilities. I've submitted some written comments, but a couple of points. First, the responsibilities of high school teachers and post-secondary faculty with respect to students with disabilities are distinct. They emerge from different federal laws and require different sets of knowledge and skills. Post-secondary faculty must ensure equal access to their courses in compliance with the ADA and Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, prohibiting discrimination based on disability and requiring reasonable accommodations. Faculty may, for example, need to provide audio versions of course materials or extra time for assessments. College students are expected to advocate for their own needs. A public high school is, of course, fundamentally different. High school teachers are responsible under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act for implementing the individualized education programs of students with disabilities. They must provide supplementary aids and services, including program modifications and instructional, behavioral, or environmental supports, and collaborate with special educators to design and deliver specially designed instruction to meet a student's unique needs. Second, the student population served by public high school is not just younger, but also far more diverse than college, particularly when it comes to students with disabilities. Only 27% of Maryland youth who had an IEP enroll in post-secondary education within 1 year of leaving high school. Put another way, post-secondary faculty will have had limited, if any, access to almost 3/4 of high school students with disabilities. Students with intellectual disabilities, significant learning disabilities, severe emotional disabilities, as well as many non-disabled students who struggle in school or face a variety of barriers will infrequently appear in college classrooms. Yet all of these students will be in high school classrooms and need educators prepared to teach them and create classroom environments that support them. Therefore, I would propose a transcript analysis pathway for post-secondary faculty that would allow for professional experience to substitute for some coursework, but would require coursework in special education, classroom management, and literacy, 3 areas whose content is most divergent from the professional experiences that these candidates may bring from post-secondary classrooms. Thank you for considering these changes as you develop and advance regulations for the alternative licensure pathways that balance expanding the teacher workforce with meeting the needs of all students. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate your comments. And also the timeliness of, obviously, because that's on our agenda today. All right, our second guest.
Emily McCourt.
And welcome, Emily. We're glad you're here.
Let me unmute my screen. Sorry. Hello, my name is Emily McCourt, and I am a teacher with Apex Arts, and I am here to support the Fine Arts Transcript Pathway. Arts education is important now more than ever, and art educators are at risk. When the transcription analysis pathway was removed, it took away options for art educators and forced us into the master's degree pathway. At a time when art programs are vulnerable, when the cost of school is at an all-time high and loan forgiveness programs may be taken away, the decision to take away our options for licensure was cruel. Currently, tuition reimbursement requires that we have the money up front and get paid back later. while first-year teacher salaries don't even meet the basic cost of living. We cannot also be expected to pay for graduate school when the county doesn't offer viable financial assistance. This oversight when changing the licensure pathways has caused an overwhelming amount of stress. Our time and money has been wasted, and our trust has been broken. We were told we could do the original transcription analysis pathway, but after our contracts were signed, we were told the only option available was the master's pathway. The lack of answers, planning, and organization from the county for hirees of 24-25 was abysmal. At the very least, to repair the damage that has been caused, I urge you to move the fine arts transcript analysis pathway forward and make it available quickly so that those hired in 24-25 and future educators have options towards licensure. Conditional teachers only have 5 years to obtain our licenses, and we have already lost one. While I know this was an oversight and there was no intention to cause harm, these actions have had a negative impact on art educators all the same. Approving these changes would go a long way towards earning our trust and goodwill. I started graduate school, despite how hard it has been for me to juggle school and work and finances, because arts education is a passion I want to dedicate my life to. Please don't make other art educators have to make the decision I felt forced to make to keep my job. We need good educators, and educators deserve the freedom of choice. If you want to be a county that has quality, passionate educators, I urge you to move this option for licensure forward. Thank you for your time.
All right, and we thank you so much for your comments as well. If you didn't, there's a printed copy of those comments that were made available at the table, and thank you so much for submitting those. And also, thank you for going into education. I appreciate your persistence. We need you. Thanks so much. All right, and we have a third guest. You also have those comments available to you as well. Those were printed on the table.
Athena Hyotis.
Good morning. My name is Athena Hyotis, and I'm actually going into my second year teaching at Studio 39 at AACPS. And I had the pleasure of speaking to the board about this subject in the beginning of the year. Naturally, I was thrilled when I heard that this was moved to this place, and I just thank you for giving us an opportunity to speak. I can attest as well that at the time of my interview, May 2024, I wasn't informed that the requirements of my license would include a master's program. In fact, it was explicitly said that the transcript analysis would probably be the best route. And when I started teaching in the fall, all we were told was there are options and there's choices, but unfortunately, as we know now, teachers of the arts were excluded from the cheaper and faster resident teacher pathway, which left us with one requirement. Of course, that's the master's. Reasons continue to remain a mystery, but that doesn't matter since we're here. What actually hurt the most was that after we posed question after question, we were met with nothing but, I don't know, we'll look into it, which is fine. I believe that that was the case. But as you can imagine, it was frustrating, it was upsetting, and not to mention just unacceptable. And I can't adequately articulate to you how much I love the school that I teach at. And I never thought that the county, much less the state, would just support me being a teacher as well as a touring musician. It's just something I did not know was an option when I was growing up. It just feels like Ms. McCourt said, an unfortunate oversight. And I urge you as well to push forward ways that would help us stay. We can give all the reasons in the world, but the math that's associated with time and money, we can't make that up. If a teacher has neither the time nor the money to go to the master's program to stay in their school or in their county, there's nothing that we can do. So I thank you very much, and I appreciate you giving us the time to speak.
All right, and I thank you for your comments as well, and also thank you again for being a teacher. We've obviously been working through this for several meetings, quite a few months, and the work has been deliberative. We want to make sure we get it right. So when we get public comment like that, it really does help steer our work. So I do want to say thank you to the 3 people that reached out to us, because we do take these comments very seriously. It's very important to us that we address this issue and that we get it right as we do it. And we also, I think, certainly acknowledge the timeliness of the work that we're doing. So it's good that it's on the agenda today, and it's great that you guys offered comment. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, so that leads us now, if we're ready, to Ms. Oakley with the State Board update. She's gone? Okay. All right, well, I do know if she comes in later, we'll readjust the schedule. You got a transmittal with links in it and so forth, so you'll have that document. So that's also printed on the table, but you also have the hyperlinks in there as well. So we might want to, if you're at leisure, go over that. Kelly?
So I just wanted to add, should she not be able to join us today, the state board did approve the adoption of the administrator licensure regulations. So they should be published in the Code of Maryland regulations by September 1st.
Okay, and then for new members, walk us through. There'll be public comment, correct?
Nope, it's done.
It's done.
Yeah.
So we're not at that point. We didn't, they adopted. Great. Okay, that's super. I did see that. All right, wonderful. And congratulations on good work. All right, so then that leaves us to the approval of the July minutes. You also got a copy of those. Let's take a couple of minutes, and if you haven't had a chance, take a look at that. And then I'll entertain a motion to adopt. All right, does anybody need more time to look at the document? All right, then I will entertain, and if you would, when you come off mic, just say your name. I will entertain a motion to adopt the July 10th, 2025 minutes, and then we can move to make adjustments if we need to.
Darren, Karen Yoho, I'll move that because I do have a couple of corrections, so.
All right, we need a second.
Second.
All right, thank you. We have a second. All right, we open it for discussion. Any changes, deletions, additions? Jump right in. Karen?
Yeah, it's Dr. Cheryl Dyson, and I was absent, and I don't see my name there, so.
Okay, we'll add that in. Dr. Shockley?
Yes, and just a minor grammatical change to put a comma after Shockley and Miss Spain, and then remove the comma after Dr. Woodward and make that a period. Thank you.
Hi, and I was present in the July meeting.
All right.
Aaron, on page 3 of the minutes, is that supposed to be proposed agenda for June or August?
This was on what page, Dr. Taylor?
The last page
Okay.
of the agenda. That's proposed June agenda.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so that would be the proposed August agenda. All right, we can change that. Oh, just jumped in.
Dr. Bishop.
Hi, that was the correction. It's Dr. instead of Miss Bishop.
Thank you.
All right, anything else? All right, so with each of the cited additions, deletions, and changes, all in favor of approving the July 10th, 2025 minutes with those additions, changes, and deletions, just signify by saying aye or raising your hand. All right, is there anybody who's opposed? Any abstentions? All right, then the July minutes are adopted. Thank you for all your help with that. All right, so we have the communications update. I was just chatting with Kelly. There was a discussion, we've kind of let it go for a couple of months, but there was a discussion about posting all of our documents to the website, much the same way they would do with State Board of Ed. Kelly, you're still looking into that, but we're making some progress, I think?
Yes, I see no reason why that's not going to happen.
Okay, great. So we'll look forward to that. We don't have a timeline yet, but they're working on it. Okay, that's good. In addition to that, many of you remember when we had a presentation about people who are on the conditional certificate and the high number of people who don't make it to the end and so forth. There were some questions as to why teacher attrition is so high. And that led to a discussion by this board about the fact that we probably need to begin to collect some actual data on why teachers are leaving that go well beyond the exit surveys that are traditionally given. We did, Dr. Shockley penned a letter with that, and that was introduced to the board at a previous meeting. We did not get any specific feedback for changes, so that looked to be in agreement with the board. So that has now been sent. So we will be working with time to set up a meeting with the superintendent to discuss that. And if anybody has any additional suggestions for that, please reach out to Dr. Shockley or I. So we'll be happy to do that. Any questions about that? All right, and many thanks, Dr. Shockley, for crafting a great letter and doing even additional research to back up what our concerns were. So it was great. Did a super job with that. All right, anything else with public comment that we need to, or with communications? Announcements are perfect here.
Thank you. Good morning again, everyone. I just wanted to announce that last week, the Maryland Institute for Literacy and Equity, along with the Maryland State Department of Education, held a literacy summit in College Park. And the attendance or the attendees included almost all of our district partners. There were more than 200 people in attendance, as well as our IHEs. And we hope that that can happen again in the wonderful state of Maryland. And so on behalf of the Maryland Institute for Literacy and Equity, or as we say, MILE, we appreciate it, all who attended. And as those opportunities come forward again, we will certainly invite the board. And I wanted to also add that MILE is not only a University of Maryland initiative, it is in partnership as well with Morgan State University. So thank you, everybody who was able to attend. Let your colleagues know we appreciate it, and hopefully we'll be able to bring the institutions of higher education and PK-12 partners together again in the future.
All right, that sounds wonderful. Anybody else with any other updates or announcements or invitations? All right. Thanks, everyone, for that. All right, so that'll take us now into COMAR 13A12-0203, which is Pathways to Teacher Licensure. You have two documents that were sent out on this. You've got a transmittal memo on the top. It'll say permission to publish. And then you also have, with comments, the additions regarding art educators and so forth that we're discussing. Oh, okay, so we're going to go back to the State Board update? Yeah, let's do that. All right, table that for a second. Flexibility is a virtue. Welcome to education. You always have to be flexible, right? All right. All right, so welcome, Ms. Oakley. So yes, go ahead, and if you want to, go ahead and fish out, if you would please, the paperwork on the State Board with the hyperlinks. We're ready. Thank you for being here.
Right. Good morning, everyone. It is great to be with you all. I just wanted to kind of preview what the State Board is going to consider this month, as well as share what we did last month. So at our July meeting, we approved or we granted permission to adopt the regulations for administrator licensure that are based on the work group and that have gone through PSTEB, this group. So we approved those for permission to adopt. We also, in pretty exciting news, we approved and adopted the revised standards for ELA and math. So Maryland has new standards for the first time in quite a long time. Let's see, granted, this one has been through the ringer a little bit. We granted permission to republish a regulation relating to family child care and non-public nursery schools. So that one has been ongoing for a few years. So we are excited to republish those. We got a preview of the strategic plan that MSDE is developing that will come back to the board for adoption in August. And then lastly, this was kind of a special month. July was a special month for us because we had a 2-day meeting, and while most of the second day was in executive session, we did receive in public session an overview of the FY26 outcomes and how that last year ended for us. And we are now turning with the deadline of September to adopt FY27. We are now turning to FY27 outlooks, and we'll receive more of the details for those over the next couple of months. And then for August, we have another busy month. That's when we will see our MCAP data and get a chance to do a pretty deep dive into that data. Our stakeholder will be MSEA and the Baltimore Teachers Union, so we're excited to have them as we do kind of a back to school theme. We are also receiving an overview in August of all of the professional learning opportunities that MSDE offers for teachers and school leaders. That has been a real focus for Dr. Wright and really working to shift a long-term practice in Maryland to provide these trainings for teachers at no cost to teachers. And so we're going to get an update on the kind of scope and breadth of that. We're going to get an update on chronic absenteeism task force. They will be releasing a toolkit for the kind of back to school fall particular issues and how we can better support and equip school leaders and teachers and LEAs to comprehensively address that as we go back to school. We're also going to be touching on cell phones in schools. We're going to get an update on what policies LEAs have implemented over the past year, as well as Maryland is participating in a national study out of University of Pennsylvania with Dr. Angela Duckworth called Phones in Focus. And that was a survey that went out to all teachers in the state, and Maryland is actually out of all 50 states that are participating, Maryland's teachers ranked number 2 in participation. So we have a really rich data set to pull from, and kind of this is ultimately the survey will be able to connect what cell phone policies and connect those to student outcomes. And so we're really excited about that because there is a dearth of research on that, linking cell phone use and cell phone policies to student outcomes. So we're really excited to get kind of a preliminary update on what the landscape looks like at the school level in Maryland. And then lastly, I think out of the big items will be we are bringing for permission to adopt the 48 CTE programs of study. So those have gone through our committee. They will go through our Education Policy Committee once more next week, and then they will be up for a vote to adopt at our August meeting. So that is what the State Board has been up to, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you all for your time.
All right, thanks for your review. I'll open it up for any questions or comments.
Good morning. Thank you, Hannah, for always apprising us of this helpful information. I have a question. I know that we're going to find out more at the next State Board meeting, but the professional development opportunities that you mentioned that we will have more information about on August 26th, are those and MSDE does a lot, so that's why I'm trying to get my thoughts together around, are these the opportunities that exist that are going to be offered around the state, like these regional opportunities, or is this are you expecting sort of an overall scope at that meeting. I know that there are some literacy opportunities that are forthcoming, but there may be more. I just wanted to see if there's any more.
Sorry for interrupting. I think, so I haven't seen since that's not coming to committee, those materials aren't due until a couple of weeks from now. So I haven't seen kind of how MSDE is approaching it. And honestly, Ms. Meadows might have a better sense, but it's my understanding that the department just kind of wants to bring the board in because there have been so many rollouts of professional development, and just as a way to get the board apprised of the kind of scope of it. So I don't think it'll be new information to you all. I could be wrong, but in the discussions, I do believe that it's kind of just, this is what MSDE is doing, and this is kind of what it will look like over the next year, since we've brought on so many math and literacy policies and new standards and everything. So I really think it is just kind of a general overview of it. I don't think there's any kind of new announcements in there, but I'm happy to follow up with you all once I hear more.
Okay, no problem. It's just helpful so we are able to know what to look for, and then also help spread the word if there are new offerings, for example, both from our higher education colleagues and our PK-12 colleagues, so that we can all benefit. So thank you. We look forward to learning on August 26th. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else? All right, thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate it, as always. Great job. And great organization, too. It's always so easy to follow the documents here. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a lot of work. All right, so now, with the board's pleasure, let's go back to 13A120203, which was the Pathways to Teacher Licensure. So I'll give you a second to find the cover transmittal, and then also the COMAR itself. Yes. I'm sorry, say again?
Reviewing board appointments.
Let's do this first. All right. Kelly, do you mind sort of walking us through where we are right now and the document we have in front of us?
Absolutely. So this agenda item is requesting permission to publish COMAR 13A1203 Pathways to Teacher Licensure. During the last professional standards board meeting, we reviewed what we would present in a regulatory format, and that's what you're going to hear today from Ms. Fitzpatrick. And as a reminder, this is the first step in the promulgation process, so we can certainly make changes at the table. This is not gone out yet. This would be, if granted permission to publish, this would go into the Maryland Register only if the state board also grants permission to publish. So this really is the initiation of this process. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Fitzpatrick.
Good morning, everyone. So what you have in front of you, again, is 13A120203, the Pathways to Teacher Licensure. And so I'm going to walk through some of the changes. And so you will see those highlighted in yellow next to the language that is in red in brackets. In the brackets, that is the language that is being eliminated. So I will walk through each page with those changes, and then go into the regulatory language of the three pathways that we discussed in the previous meeting. So on the first page, you'll see under Section A, there is an elimination of the language for in-state. So these pathways will just be under one section, which is the Pathways to Initial Teacher Licensure, with the addition of the applicants shall meet the requirements of one pathway to earn teacher licensure. If we move down into the first pathway of the Maryland Approved Program, you'll see that there's an elimination of the language for the testing requirement for the portfolio assessment. And so you'll see the beginning on July 1st, 2025, that language has been taken out now that that requirement has gone into effect. In addition, you'll see down under that the elimination. Well, there's a minor change for one of the options for induction to be utilized in lieu of the portfolio assessment, and that is because that information has been moved down with the addition of the new pathways that we will be looking at today. There are no changes on the second page for the in-district pathway. So if we want to move to page 3, you'll see again the elimination of the language for beginning on July 1st, 2025 for the portfolio assessment, as well as the change for the induction program in lieu of the portfolio assessment. Moving down, you will also see an elimination for Section B, the out-of-state pathways to teacher licensure. Again, all of these pathways will be housed now just under one section for pathways to initial teacher licensure. And again, there's elimination of the language for beginning on July 1st and a change for the section for the induction program. If we move to the next page, you will also see, again, some of the changes to our subsections, given that all of the pathways will now be housed under, one pathways to teacher, initial teacher licensure. And then we will see the new pathways for the fine arts. And so we will start there. So the fine arts transcript analysis pathway is for individuals with content expertise in the areas of art, dance, music, or theater, and they shall meet the following requirements. So first is demonstration of content knowledge by completing one of the following: a bachelor's degree or higher in the fine arts content area being sought. 2, a bachelor's degree or higher in any field in a minimum of 24 semester hours of content coursework in the fine arts area being sought. 3, a bachelor's degree in a fine arts area related to the area of licensure being sought in 3 years of content-related occupational experience, which may include satisfactory post-secondary teaching experience. Or 4, a bachelor's degree or higher in any field, 3 years of content-related occupational experience, which may include satisfactory post-secondary teaching experience in the area being taught, and then a passing score on the content assessment. In addition, for B, we had the professional coursework, and so we had a lot of robust conversation about adding an additional course, which was the classroom management, and so you'll see that reflected in the 24 semester hours. And so those classes include the methods of teaching, introduction to special education, human growth and development, assessment, literacy in the content area, culturally responsive teaching, multicultural education, or strategies for multilingual learners, so it can be any of those options, and classroom management. And finally, for the test of teaching ability, the first option would be a passing score as established by the State Superintendent of Schools on a portfolio-based assessment, so that at this point is the TPA, the PEPAD is offered until December 31st, 2025, and then is being retired. The second option would be an effective or comparable rating on 2 end-of-year evaluations if that individual is employed in a Maryland school system, state-operated school, or an approved non-public school. And the third option is completion of a comprehensive induction program that is approved by the department and the AIB. So you'll see the changes that we discussed reflected in those options. We went from the 1 effective end-of-year evaluation to 2 years. So I will stop there before we get into the secondary general education transcript analysis pathway to see if there are any comments or questions.
I have more so a general question about the comprehensive induction program. Is that, so you said it's approved by MSDE, not every induction program is approved right now?
That is correct. We do not have any approved induction programs at this time.
Thank you.
And Kelly can
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that everyone understands the distinction between an LEA induction program and what is required in the blueprint law that states that both the AIB and the MSDE have to approve a program. It has to be aligned to the in-task standards, and it has to have a portfolio-based assessment component, which is not in the induction regulations. It goes above and beyond what an LEA would normally have to provide, which is why we say there are no programs approved for this purpose at this time.
Okay, anyone else?
Okay, moving on to the secondary general education transcript analysis pathway. And so again, this would be for individuals with content expertise in gen ed teaching areas, and these would only be for 7 through 12 grade bands. And so first, demonstration of content knowledge. The options are 1, a bachelor's degree or higher in the content area being sought. 2, a bachelor's degree or higher in any field with a minimum of 24 semester hours of content coursework in the area of license being sought. And 3, a bachelor's degree or higher in any field, 3 years of content-related occupational experience, and a passing score as established by the State Superintendent of Schools on a content assessment. In addition to the content knowledge, there will also need to be 21 semester hours of professional coursework. And these are the same courses that are reflected in the fine arts transcript analysis pathway. So there are no changes there, they're uniform. And the third is the test of teaching ability. Again, these are the same 3 options that are reflected in transcript analysis for fine arts. So a passing score on the portfolio-based assessment, 2 years of effective or comparable end-of-year evaluations, or completion of a comprehensive induction program approved by the department and the AIB. Any questions there? Okay. So the final pathway is the experienced higher education faculty pathway. And we did have some public comment this morning, so I do want to provide an opportunity for the board to discuss that public comment and some of the recommendations that were offered there. But this particular pathway would be for individuals with general education content experience, and they also have experience teaching as post-secondary faculty. And again, these will be for individuals working in the 7 through 12 gen ed content areas. So first, they would need a conferral of a master's degree or higher in that content area being sought. In addition, verification of 3 years of full-time satisfactory teaching experience at an accredited IHE in that content area. And finally, at the request of this board and our discussion, they would need to meet one of the requirements for test of teaching ability. So that would be the portfolio assessment, effective or comparable ratings on 2 end-of-year evaluations, or completion of a comprehensive induction program approved by the department and the AIB. At the bottom, you'll see the language for evaluating credits from institutions from other countries, as well as the language for the comprehensive induction programs. But again, I wanted to pause here to open up discussion about some of the recommendations offered by Ms. Zogby this morning in terms of coursework for these individuals.
Leslie Stanton, did we get a copy of her public comment? I don't see it amongst my things. It was emailed to us. Okay,
yes,
sorry.
It was in the email.
Thank you.
Dr. Bishop.
Hi, this could be being new on my part, but I was just curious. I just went to the certification areas page, and I'm wondering about the other specialty areas. So, you know, just thinking about the world languages, PE, environmental education, those that are pre-K-12. Are those affected by any of this, or is that separate language that we haven't worked with yet?
So are they affected? No, these would be for general ed 7 through 12 areas. So English, social studies, not specialty areas that are PK through 12. The fine arts transcript analysis pathway, those areas are PK through 12, but again, they are limited to art, dance, theater, and music.
So they are, so for example, a Spanish major wouldn't fall under those requirements?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
I wanted to help everyone remember the comments that were shared this morning about the preparation of teachers and the importance of our exceptional learners. And my thinking around that is, let me ask a question before I go into my thoughts. My thoughts are that I'm on board with that, in particular because there is a special education course offered by MSDE anyway that I do not believe has a cost, and I think it is, okay, it does have a cost. Okay, it is virtual, if I remember correctly, and so for the purpose of discussion and responding to the public comment, would someone from MSDE tell us a little bit more about the course that, I just love to know more about the special education course that is offered. I know there's one. Yeah.
So we have a list of acceptable
list.
courses, and it's simply a resource. It is absolutely not exhaustive. So the way that the regulations are currently written, it can be any 3 credits course in special education. We're not talking transcript analysis right now. We're talking about the specialists and the administrators chapters that requires that 3 credits of special education. So there's a wide variety of coursework that an individual can take as part of the eligibility requirements for those licenses, specialists and administrators. MSDE, after hearing from the community, put together a resource of all Maryland colleges and universities, their listing of special education coursework, so that there was an easy place for specialists and administrators to go on our website to start their research on how do I find a course. MSDE also developed a course. We worked with our Division of Special Education to develop a Special Education 101 course that is also available through our Canvas platform. For the transcript analysis routes that we're talking about today, we were very specific to recommend an introduction to special education course as part of those requirements. So I want to make sure everyone understands that there is a difference. You could have an introduction to special education course for the specialist administrator eligibility requirements, or you could have a different type of special education course. Whereas in the transcript analysis regulations in front of you, not the pathway we're talking about now, but the other 2 pathways, it has to be an intro course.
Thank you for that information. And now I remember, because I remember submitting some courses for that. I would be open to hearing others, the thoughts of our colleagues around having a special education course. There is a resource for them. If they are former IHE faculty, those resources and those courses are typically available to them. And so given the background and instruction and experience that happens in higher education, regardless of your background, just the interaction that you've had with people, not our PK-12 students, but with people. I don't know that I believe that it has to be an intro course for them, but I do believe that I am on board if people are interested in entertaining a conversation about having a course for exceptional learners. I just wanted to share that, especially since we're at the intro phase. So thank you.
All right, any comments?
I raised my hand, so
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Thank you. Jump right in. My apology.
Yeah, no worries. I was wondering, I wasn't here last meeting, and I don't remember if I asked this question 2 meetings ago, but is there a reason why there isn't a coursework requirement for post-secondary, well, for higher education faculty who want to become teachers? Because classroom management, human growth and development, all of those things are different for for 6 through 12 students than it would be for post-secondary students.
I think and some of the members of the PSTEB subcommittee can definitely chime in as well, but the initial thought was that this pathway was for a much different audience, for individuals that already had teaching experience at the post-secondary level. So an entry point for those individuals to come in into the teaching profession and gain a professional license pretty quickly and make it accessible for them. And so that's why there wasn't, the transcript analysis professional coursework that was included because they had that experience. Again, we are here, we are open to that discussion. If the board decides to include some professional coursework for these individuals, we could add that language here today and still move forward with asking the board for permission to publish.
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So just to sort of summarize, and I need the board to correct me if I'm getting any of this wrong, because I think we should frame where we're going from here. So it looks as though the feedback that we got is in sort of plain language, suggesting that a faculty member from an IHE teaching in higher ed, making a transition into a public school classroom, may not necessarily have the expertise necessary in the areas of special ed, like how do you read a 504, how do you implement an IEP, those kinds of things, and that might be something that we would need to make sure they have competency in, and that's not necessarily reflected in where we are right now. So I think as we deliberate this, we kind of have to, which I think was a great question that was just asked, was there a reason for leaving it out? And the assumption is maybe they already have that, and the suggestion is, well, maybe they don't. So that might be something that constructively probably should be in there. The second thing that I heard was also classroom management, which we did manage to add to the others because teaching in a public school classroom with multiple needs might be a different environment than a college course. And for many of us who teach in both worlds, of course, I think you can see that. And the developmental issues are different as well. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last one mentioned was literacy, is that correct?
Yes, literacy in the content area.
Okay, so. Literacy in the content area. I guess in our discussions, and I think it's okay to kind of go through these one at a time, starting with special ed, to what degree do we believe that competency is most likely there, or do we need to sharpen it a bit? So that's where we are. So have I summarized this correctly? Okay,
yes, sir.
So I think that's where we are right now. All right, so let's continue the discussion about special education. And I'll open the floor to any comments or any thoughts that you might have as to whether that is a necessary thing to add. So I'd like to hear from folks who would be in favor of that, or anybody who thinks that's not a good idea. Because I think what we can do now is if we can decide today how to do this, we don't necessarily have to go back to committee again. We could still vote to publish today. But we just need to be comfortable, I think, on these 3 points as we go forward. So let's focus on special ed, and I'll open it up to anybody who wants to chime in.
I just want, sorry, wrong button. I just wanted to add one more time that I am in favor of a special education course. I don't know that it has to be intro, but I could be swayed for it to be intro, but certainly the special education course for this pathway. And Dr. Gartland's hand is up.
Thank you, and you got to me too quick. I was going to put my hand down, but I was going to say the same thing. And I actually think an intro is a good selection, but I'm open to something else. And I also had another question then while I'm on here. Do we know about how many folks in the past have made the transition from post-secondary ed into K through 12? I know that would be amazing if we did.
Yeah. Unfortunately, no, I don't have that information.
Thanks.
So I just had a question about, is there a way that we can differentiate, or is this regulation only for those who have never taught in a K-12? Could the regs be written that if you once taught in a K-12, but then since have had your licensure lapse, could the regs be different? Because presumably they would have had experience in coursework previously, and then they moved up to the post-secondary, and now they want to come back to K-12.
Kelly? And I'm sorry, you two were thinking about this, it looks like.
If there's an individual who transitioned in the past and their credential lapse, they would be able to follow the requirements or meet the requirements to reinstate. So that would be a different process. But those individuals the classroom is readily accessible for them to reinstate that credential.
Okay, that answers the question.
I wanted to add, as we talk through the other areas, all of which are important, that something that we mentioned, I think in the last meeting, is that this passing score is established by the state superintendent on a nationally recognized performance assessment, presumably the EdTPA. The EdTPA has some pretty specific requirements about working with a range of learners, and so I believe that we should also keep that in mind, that they will, have to have a passing score on that portfolio. But for the record, I'm in favor of all of these, but I just thought I would add that as a backdrop for why the committee was thinking about something that would holistically show or offer a way for individuals going through this pathway to demonstrate their understanding.
Would that be enough without the course, you think, though? Because you're in favor of the course, correct?
Oh, I'm in favor of the course, and I'm thinking about. I've been a scorer, so I'm literally going back thinking if I think it would be enough. For special education, I don't think it's enough. I think that people need a special education class, and as Dr. Gartland, a special educator, mentioned, intro to special education, and Dr. Gartland's hand is up as well as Dr. Bischoff.
Can I just jump in just for before? Sorry, Jenny, just to say, and I don't think. In terms of the classroom management course issue, I don't think that we put rightly so, more of an emphasis on classroom management with restorative justice and all the other things that we push into the broad level classroom management. And even with the EdTPA, I think that doesn't, somebody can pass the EdTPA saying no, that there was not a classroom management issue with this child or something like that. So I don't think that unless somebody left teaching very recently and happened to have a classroom management course, I don't think it would cover that without it in a similar track, a similar language to the special education that I'm in favor of adding to.
Okay, and I think because I kind of like take these one at a time. So Debbie, can we come back to you when we get to the management part? Because I'd like you to speak to that again, if that's okay.
I was just addressing the other person's comment, though. Yeah.
Sure. Nope, and I appreciate you doing that. Any other comments about the addition of the special ed? Someone else had their hand up too, I think.
It's me. Hi, it's Jenny. Anecdotally, I taught college chemistry before I became a high school chemistry teacher. We knew nothing about classroom management, which that's later. But special education, I remember people scoffing at the idea of differentiation. And even just in the last 3 years, a colleague in another department, a hard science, if you will, told me that he just teaches to the middle because that way you cover most of the bases. So when I hear those things, it makes me think that though we respect and honor their content knowledge, there's a lot that is, it's different with the age level. It's different with the expectations. It's culturally different between, secondary and post-secondary. So I am fully in support of a special ed course because it's a night and day difference and people are not prepared for it and sometimes have not adjusted their attitudes to what you need to do in secondary education after you've taught in universities. So just my 2 cents. Sorry, it's a little anecdotal.
Anecdotal is very important. One line of Comar can do a lot of damage if you don't get it right, and it's the anecdotal stuff that points you in the right direction. So I really appreciate that. All right, who else had a comment in this area?
Just a plug for same sort of idea with culturally responsive teaching too. I think that could look different in a post-secondary environment than in a K-12 classroom.
All right, so is there anybody who would be opposed to adding a requirement for a special education course, most likely introductory? All right, I don't hear anybody objecting to that. Kelly, can you, since we kind of like to vote to publish maybe today, can you give us a sentence of how that might look if we add that in?
Sure. Do you want me to do that now, or do you want to get through the other two?
Yeah, whatever you would like. What's easiest for you?
Just looking at the one before it, it's probably going to say something like complete a minimum of 3 semester hours of credit of professional education coursework and introduction to special education.
Right, so we just do
if it was
the way
just
we did
that
before.
course, that's
yeah,
what
so
it
you'd
would,
copy
yeah.
that line and then put that
Yeah.
in. Yeah, I just wanted to have an idea in our head of how we would fix this verbally when we see it. Okay, that looks great. All right, so now let's move on to whether a course in classroom management is necessary, and I'll open the floor to discussion on that area. Dr. Shockley.
Yes, I'm going to start by following up on the comment from Dr. Gartland. In the subcommittee, what we were referencing in terms of having to demonstrate your understanding and expertise is the video that is submitted with EdTPA, and so you can't just say that Ebony followed my directions. You have to show that I did. Pretty difficult anyway. So that was sort of what we were thinking for this particular group. We also had in our minds quite a particular group of people who we wanted to come into PK-12 and understanding the shortage for this. I will add that background. I also wanted to state that in the last meeting or the previous meeting that our superintendents were very much in favor of classroom management for all. So I thought I would, since they are unable to join us today, go ahead and put that out there on their behalf. And so the subcommittee also, not the subcommittee, I want to call you by your professional name and not your name. Oh my gosh, Sophia, stated that, did a lot of work. MSTE did a lot of work in putting together a document showing all of the institutions that offered classroom management or had the name classroom management or were the cousin to classroom management. And there were not many. I think one or two. A 4-year institution, Dr. Gartland shared that Towson offers it, as well as a one community college had a standalone course. So we were just trying to think about, well, we don't want to say it's required, and then they can't take the course. So I'm just adding some context so people will understand where we were coming from as a subcommittee, and other subcommittee members. If I'm telling the incomplete story, please jump in. And so yes, so I should say that we are working at some other IHEs to provide this because I shared that this is probably going to pass and we need more courses. So the classroom management standalone course in many IHEs went away and had been folded into some other courses. And you know how you take content and you spread it across a program, but the superintendents and many others of our stakeholders, our colleagues shared that a classroom management class, like every superintendent, even not on this board, was like, excuse me, classroom management is the first thing that I see in my district. So I wanted to add that story for us and remind us of our superintendent colleagues who are on this board for classroom management. Thank you.
So if we required a classroom management course, is there a capacity out there for someone to earn that? And you think the answer is yes?
I believe so. I mean, we took a look, and it is pretty available at this point. Like Ebony said, it is folded into some of the methods courses, but when we looked at the offerings at community colleges, they're still being offered, just because it is a little bit of a throwback to some of the courses that were offered before. They haven't done away with those courses, so and there is an option as well, like Ebony was speaking to earlier, about MSDE with some of the requirements for these new transcript analysis pathways to then build out some coursework. That is the hope, right? That if it's in regulation, then our IHEs would also be able to pick that up. But I do know, given the new requirements for renewal, many of our community colleges have started kind of packaging their courses into those buckets, and so they are available there, and they're pretty affordable as well.
So it's there and it'll most likely grow. All right. Well, I have a question then. So if you get to the end of the reg where we go C, meet one of the following qualifications. You have to have a passing score on a nationally recognized portfolio-based assessment, or 2 end-of-year evaluations that are effective or comparable, or complete a comprehensive induction program. So my question is, could you get through any of those 3 successfully without having good classroom management? Do you understand where I'm going with this? Because if this is the gatekeeper right here that says you've got to have classroom management skills, can someone slip through and have classroom management skills that are lacking to the point where we would be concerned about that, so we'd need to add a course in? Is that correct thinking in my head? You understand where I'm going with this? All right, so I kind of opened that up because that's what my question is. Do we have a gatekeeping mechanism in place?
So I think we had a conversation about evaluations before where we talked about the differences in evaluations across the state. So that does kind of concern me if there's not a classroom management, but the evaluations are too difficult or too easy to pass, that people are slipping through that maybe shouldn't be slipping through.
And that could be exacerbated with shortages as well. You're kind of willing to let, I can work with this person, but you get someone. That's a good point. All right.
Similarly, and maybe Dr. Shockley can speak to this, with the, the portfolio, do you think that it's sufficient? Kind of the similar question to the special education question we were having.
I think that the portfolio, there is an opportunity to show effective instruction with groups, because you have to consent, right, to being recorded. And as a PK-12 educator and higher education faculty member, I believe that that is not enough for what we are seeking. I am thinking about the fact that I don't believe that many districts will give you an effective evaluation for 2 years, and maybe they'll slip through, but I wonder about the opportunity to go ahead and foreground that so that they have the support to help them get through it, instead of hoping that they'll get through it based on what they knew and understand before they came into the PK-12 space. And so that's my thinking. So they could, right, this groups, and the groups of children who consent to that process, may or may not be, they are not a reflection of the full class, right? And so this conversation is helping me go back to other conversations that we had on this board and in the subcommittee meeting about the importance of, organization, for sure, and classroom management. So,
Debbie.
Thanks. I want to just agree with Ebony in terms of the EdTPA. So my students, the dual cert LED special ed, we require them to do the special education EdTPA. And so that's one child who you are working with. And I would never advise any of my soon-to-be graduates to pick a child who has disruptive, unruly behavior for their case child. So, and I had at one time been a national scorer too of the EdTPA. So I think that that would not be sufficient to show good classroom management skills based on the EdTPA. The other thing is that I think that if you we all know teachers who have left the field, and one, if not the top reason, one of the top reasons is because they just, classroom management, the unruly behavior of kids and not being able to handle that. And I obviously can't speak for all the wonderful LEAs in Maryland, but some of the many schools that I've worked in over the past few decades, I have seen teachers who are on, I think it's called something differently, but some kind of a plan to help them gain better teaching skills. And it's often with classroom management, and sometimes, so I do think that people can slip by because we have such a shortage of teachers with the great hopes that they will be better. So I really am in favor of classroom management as well. But I guess I want to step back so that we understand that I'm sure nobody around the table there or here virtually wants to add more blockades to get people into the classroom. So just wanted to say that out loud to myself too, that here I'm thinking, yes, I'm in support of special ed. I'm in support of classroom management. We haven't gotten to the third area, but that's more, but I think it's because we don't want to drop our standards for what we envision our children in Maryland need in their providers.
Yeah, I think you phrased that so well. Thank you, Dr. Garland. And that is the conundrum, because you want to make sure that our job as a board is to make sure we have minimum standards in place by which a person has what they need to do to go into a classroom, be effective, and certainly do no harm. But we also understand if there's a gatekeeping mechanism in place and you add something in addition to that, you've created a barrier. So we don't want to do that. Yet we also understand, based on the data that Kelly's brought so many times to this table, that we have an attrition problem. It's retention. If everybody who had a degree teaching stayed with teaching, we have none of these problems. They don't stay. So when you send someone in, let's say I hate to say the word lower the standard, but if you try and remove too many blockades so you get someone in, what good is it if they're met with an environment they don't know how to manage, and of course they leave? So all of those things together, I think, those things are what we as a board have to balance when we write these lines of COMAR. So Debbie, you phrased that just perfectly. Who else has an additional comment?
Dr. Allen.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think that we're also doing, I guess maybe phrasing it a different way, doing these potential educators a disservice by putting the emphasis on the gatekeeping mechanism, but not giving them the opportunities to learn those skills before it's time for them to have to demonstrate that they have acquired them. And that's what the requirements for the courses would do, is making sure that they have those skills and help them to have a sense of efficacy with the students that they have in front of them, so that hopefully they would stay in the classroom.
All right, anyone else? All right, well, let me ask this. Is there anybody who would be opposed to adding a management course? All right, so Kelly, I think we want to add a management course, is what the board is suggesting.
May I throw something out?
Of course. Well, that's why I said, I want all of the comments on the table before we go forward.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that I think this has been a great discussion, and I'm sitting here listening to, we heard public comment. Dr. Bischoff made a great point, and it seems like we're potentially discussing whether or not this pathway is appropriate. And so I also don't want to take that off the table, because what I don't want is to end up with another transcript analysis pathway just for higher ed faculty, unless we can identify the eligibility requirements that allow that pathway to make sense. So for instance, if we take just the 3 courses that Ms. Zogby recommended, but I've also heard at least one other course here in this discussion, so that's 4 out of the 7, then the only difference between the previous pathway and this pathway becomes you have to have a master's degree. So now it's almost like we're building this pathway to look almost identical to the other pathway. So I think it's worth discussing are we comfortable with that secondary general content transcript analysis? And is the fact that we're comfortable with those 7 courses and that experience and that pedagogical component, is that what's lacking from this pathway? And can we get to a place where we're not making it another transcript analysis? And maybe the answer is no, and that's okay. But I just wanted to throw that out there because that's also an option.
Did this pathway come to be as a result of, isn't there an adjunct? Like, is this similar to that?
No, it's not
different.
similar, but
Okay.
there is an adjunct. This pathway came out of our PSTEB subcommittee, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong, Sophia, but my recollection was we were seeing it in other states.
That I remember now.
And
That's
so
right.
one of the things that we discussed were, is this an option for Maryland?
For Maryland. Okay. Thank you for that. I couldn't remember that. I appreciate your comment, and I'm looking at the other requirements for like the 7 through 12 option. And the only difference really would be not having methods of teaching, human growth and development, and assessment. Then we have added, to your point, another course. And I was going to say, well, what about culturally responsive teaching? Right, I was about to add another one. And so, So let me give you my immediate reaction. I should have thought about this more clearly. I want to extend Dr. Allen's comment about whether we see this as a barrier or an opportunity. And the dilemma of the subcommittee was exactly this conversation that Darren mentioned. Like, we want to have this as an option. We don't want to we don't want to ignore the teacher shortage. At the same time, my thinking is, I'm going to have a lot of feedback about this. My thinking is, when you're at an institution, there is another barrier that's already removed, which is the availability of the courses. And so, in my mind, I think that we could keep it on the table because we need as many pathways as we can get. And we did see it in other states. So that's my thinking at the moment. Now, obviously, time is also a resource, but I do know that the accessibility when you're at an IHE for coursework, it's more readily available for faculty at institutions of higher education. I want to think about and honor what Jenny said about going from higher ed. She's chemistry, I'm biology, and but I went in the opposite way. I went from teaching high school biology to teaching college. So my students are like, "You're not lecturing, right?" So I had the opposite in college. They're like, "No, I don't lecture. I'm a teacher." So I'm thinking about that, and that's my reaction. I think we can keep it because I think we need it, because I think that the shortage is such that we want to have as many pathways as possible, not to bring more transcript analysis to the certification office. That is not the intent at all. I remember the conversations about getting rid of it, and now we're back. But I wanted to just offer that feedback that I do hope that we keep this open. Now, the other part of that is if there's a way to find out a trend or pattern of in our state of higher education faculty who did come into BK-12. I know we want to vote on it today, but if we didn't, right, and we find that out and the numbers are nominal, then in that case, I think they could just come in the other way for 7 through 12. So anyway, those are my thoughts. We're trying to respect and understand that these individuals have taught someone. It's just that they're applying andragogy, and we're asking them to understand pedagogy. So that's my thought about that, and I hope it's helpful.
I'll just add to that. That makes total sense to me. And the other thing is maybe it's like less gatekeepy if there's just like, we identify which of these 7 we feel like are would be most lacking coming from a post-secondary. So you're not putting folks through all 21 semester hours, but it's like the 9 or 12 that we feel like would be missing, making it like distinct enough from the other pathway.
And just to add on to that point, due to the fact that these individuals would have to meet one of the requirements for the test of teaching ability, likely when they come in, because they need to access the students, they would be working on a conditional license for at least a year or two. And so we do have, while they're not renewing a conditional license, we do have the luxury for those individuals to work with their supervisors in their districts to develop an individualized plan or of professional development and get that coursework under their belt while they're in the classroom. And like Ebony said, eventually they will have to show that ability through one of those 3 options of tests of teaching ability. The point of this pathway was to provide individuals with content expertise a way directly into the teaching field. And again, if we are adding more coursework, isn't necessary.
Yeah, it only works if the level of coursework is less than the other one. So the question is, what are we comfortable stopping at? Yeah. And I guess that comes down to the question, are we comfortable producing this pathway with only 2 additional courses required, special education and management? And are we comfortable stopping there?
I would like to have a conversation. I would like to have a conversation about culturally responsive teaching.
Then
that's all I have so far. Just that I'd love to hear the group's thoughts on that one too.
All right, Phil, just jump right in.
Okay, Dr. Bishop.
Thank you. I think one thing we could also talk about is reading instruction. Because again, in my chemistry work and grad work, we didn't talk about reading. I still don't know how people learn to read, okay? And I've been doing this a while. So I feel like, especially if we're talking about the harder sciences, their last instruction in the English language was whatever that English 300 course is they need to graduate. So we may want to consider reading if that's important, but just a thought. I could also see the multicultural learning as a very important course as well.
Dr. Allen?
I also want to bring up human growth and development again. So all of the things, honestly, it's very hard for me to say that any of these courses would not be relevant and necessary for a higher ed colleague who is going to get licensure in 7 through 12. But I could waiver with some of them, but human growth and development, I think, literacy, for the reasons that Dr. Bischoff said, also, for me, culturally responsive teaching and multicultural education is also very important. There are just fundamental differences in the students who higher ed faculty see on a regular basis versus the students that they have to have in front of them because they're required to be there in secondary education.
Thank you, Dr. Allen. So I'm a biology teacher and a reading specialist, and I've taught content area literacy more than any other class in my life. So you already know how I feel about that. It sounds like we have 5 classes up for discussion, and I just don't know if this is serving its intended purpose, because we all know what we know, and we want to make sure that the individuals who are teaching our children have the knowledge, skill, and ability to do so in a meaningful, evidence-based way. I just want to say I'm not so sure that this is a viable option, because it seems like we want everybody to have the courses that those 21. That's the sentiment that I'm getting and feeling, but that's just my read of the room. Kelly, where's your hand going to go up?
So I was going to offer an alternative. So if we look at 8, secondary content transcript analysis, which everybody seems to be comfortable with, what if under A, where it says obtain a bachelor's degree, or sorry, I'm looking, by the way, there's two versions of this regulation floating around. The formatting is the only thing that's different.
Okay.
So apologies if my A's and I's and Romanettes aren't lining up. So for the content section where it's a bachelor's degree, either in the content area is 1, in any field with a minimum of 24 semester hours of content coursework is 2, and then 3 is in any field with 3 years of content related occupational experience and a passing score on the content assessment. What if we had a 4 that said in any field with 3 years of, it could say one of two things. In any field with 3 years of higher education or post-secondary teaching experience without the content assessment. Yeah, I mean, or you could have the content assessment, you wouldn't need the 4 if you did the content assessment. But we could potentially leverage the teaching experience at the higher ed level for a piece of that content. So it would have to be in the content. So that teaching at the higher education level would have to be in the content area. And then they would not take the content assessment, and that could be a 4 and allow us to eliminate that third pathway.
That sounds kind of like the data that, or sounds similar to what another state, I don't remember the state, but anyway, I like that option because it names our higher education professionals. It flags higher educational professionals to say, yes, we want you, and actually we're going to value your experience in this particular way by giving you this sort of credit, if you will, for this pathway. So that's my feedback, and I'd love to hear from others.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that too. Much more streamlined as well.
Okay, is there anybody that would be opposed to the suggestion Kelly just brought up, the solution? All right, I think that works. I see Kelly writing now. If we're going to take a vote on it, is there anybody who feels like they need to delay this and take it back to talk to anybody? I mean, we've been working on it quite a while. I think we could take a vote to publish today. All right. Kelly, but I don't want to vote on something to publish unless we can actually hear the wording of it first. Kelly, do you need more time to do that? We can take a break.
If you look at the fine arts transcript analysis pathway under A, the demonstration of content area knowledge for option 4, it would be similar to that language. So a bachelor's degree or higher in any field with 3 years of satisfactory post-secondary teaching experience without the content assessment.
Okay, tell us which one that is one more time.
I think I got it.
Okay.
I think I've got it.
All right, then we
Okay.
can do this.
So 4 would read, in any field with 3 years of experience teaching at an accredited institution of higher education in the content area being sought.
Okay, and read it one more time, please.
Obtain a bachelor's degree or higher in any field with 3 years of experience teaching at an accredited institution of higher education in the content area being sought.
All right. Is there anybody who would be opposed to that wording as a solution to the issue? Is there any further discussion that needs to be had on this? Is there anybody else with a comment they'd like to make? All right, then I will entertain a motion to publish 13A 120203 with the revisions made that Kelly just read.
I move that we publish COMAR 13A 120203, Pathways to Teacher Licensure.
All right, so
with the revisions.
The revisions. And
Dr. Taylor seconds.
Dr. Taylor seconds. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Any further discussion? All right, all in favor of adopting 13A120203 with the revisions Kelly just read, signify by saying aye or raising your hand. Is there anybody who's opposed? Do we have any abstentions? All right, then we have voted to publish. Kelly, can you walk us through what the process now is? It would go to the state board?
Yes, it will go to the State Board of Education. We will request the same of them. And if they grant permission to publish, it will go to the Maryland Register for 30 days and then come back to both boards. If the State Board of Education makes any substantive changes, it will restart the promulgation process and come directly back to this board.
All right. Well, that was pretty efficient, I think.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much for walking us through that. That was fantastic. Oh, I'm very proud of that. All right. I would recommend we take about a 15-minute break. So let's come back at 11:10. way of sort of addressing a couple of problems that we were seeing. And so one of them was the sheer number of teachers, as you know, that we have on conditional certificates, and that growing number in every county. And then a second thing that was, I think, driving the discussion was the lack of teacher diversity, which has been a problem for so long. And so in looking at teacher diversity, we started to look at a lot of the data that was showing us that a lot of times those teachers aren't going through traditional four-year pathways to get into the classroom. So could we come up with something by which you had a mechanism by which the locals could begin working with IHEs, 2- and 4-year institutions, and come up with unique things that could be done in order to help address these issues and move us forward. So I think that was more where it came from. It was a little controversial, I think, to pass. There was a lot of very rich discussion, and I think the concern was, well, can we do this without producing a lowering of standards by which you have, take this online course and do this and you'll be ready, which of course was not what we wanted to do. So there was a lot of discussion about gatekeeping mechanisms in place to really go over and make sure that the rigor would be there. And we had an alternate pathway. So it was sort of that thinking that sort of, I believe, led us to where we are. And if anybody wants to add to that or was around at that time, that's kind of how we got to this point. Gradually, we sort of built up consensus and it passed. And of course, this is a check-in to sort of see, well, how's it going? What did we actually come up with for implementation? Because we wrote the COMAR, so what are we doing with it now? So by way of introduction, and if anybody wants to add, please jump in, but that's sort of the genesis, I think, of where we are right now. All right, any additions to that? All right. Kelly, could you do the introductions, please?
I would love to. So I'm so happy that we've been joined today by Dr. Zipporah Miller from the Anne Arundel County Public Schools and Dr. Jason Keys, who is the Manager of Program Approval here at the Maryland State Department of Education. And I don't want to steal their thunder, but these two have had the opportunity to work very closely together. Both of their teams have worked closely together to develop this in-district training licensure pathway, and they are the only LEA in Maryland that has decided to do this. So I'm really excited that they have agreed to share their story with us, and we think that this will be something that's really interesting to the board.
And thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for hosting us. And so for those who haven't met us before, because I know we have some new board members, we did want to just kind of contextualize where we work. So I do work directly for Kelly Meadows here at MSDE, and I'm the manager of the program approval branch. And so what that means is our work is directly related to what comes out of this board. So when this board and the State Board of Ed approves regulations that are regarding teacher prep, it then becomes the responsibility of my team at that point to make sure that our institutions of higher ed and our LEAs are operating in compliance with those regs. So what you all agree to here directly affects what we do day to day. And the most fun part of our job, if I can editorialize, is when we get to partner with somebody who is looking at outside the box ways to get after this problem of teacher shortage or another problem of 6,000 conditionally licensed teachers, et cetera, et cetera. And it is an initiative like that that had our team connecting with Dr. Miller. And ma'am, I will pass it over to you to introduce yourself.
Good morning, and thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this new in-district pathway. But just to give you some context, my role in Anne Arundel Public Schools, I'm the Director for Organizational Learning, and it encompasses new teacher support. So I oversee the induction program, our 3-year induction program. I also oversee our interns, so the what formerly known as the PDS program, where the interns come in. So I look at teachers when they come in to do their internship, the induction program, and then also keeping them teacher retention. And I also had the resident teacher program under my purview. So when this came about, I was like, oh my God, yes.
All right, and so we will just get started. We're going to first give a quick overview of what the in-district training program is. I appreciate you, Darren, for the historics on this, and we'll talk a little bit about, to our newer board members or those of us who may have forgotten, what are the different facets of this training pathway. Zipporah is then going to talk about their story. How did this how did they develop their own in-district training plan? What was the rationale behind it? What were the resources that it took to get off the ground and ultimately get it launched to this year? And then finally, we will give recommendations for anybody here or who's watching on YouTube. If you are interested in standing up your own in-district pathway in your own LEA, MSDE is going to come in at the end and make sure we send you home with some recommendations so you can come into this eyes wide open as well. So the in-district training licensure pathway is only for conditional teachers. Districts may apply for approval from MSDE to implement one of these training programs leading to professional licensure. Conditionally licensed teachers who participate in this must fulfill these 4 requirements. They need to demonstrate content knowledge. They need to complete an intensive Maryland induction program, which includes on-site supervision and coaching, ongoing instructional mentoring, and achieve an effective rating on a summative evaluation at the end. They have to complete an MSDE-approved sequence of pedagogical coursework, and they have to pass a reading instruction licensure test if they are becoming licensed in one of those 4 licensure areas that require it. It's only 4 items on this list, but I can assure you that the devil is in the details, and the nitty-gritty of this is very extensive, which Zipporah will let you know about. This ultimately culminates in attestation from leadership within the district that the candidate is prepared for licensure. So for the approval process, any of these program plans must be submitted to MSDE no later than February 1st of the school year prior to implementation. We then convene a team of experts, whether they're literacy experts, licensure experts, ed prep experts, et cetera, to really review that proposal. And we look at it to make sure it is aligning to all of the requirements that are on the books. We then provide feedback to the LEA on where their proposal is and is not meeting requirements. They refine that proposal and send it back to us. We look at it once more, and we do that song and dance back and forth until all of the approval criteria are met. Once approved, we provide a monitoring schedule for the program, and that monitoring is going to include site visits. We're going to interview folks involved with this to make sure everything is happening everything that's happening on paper is actually happening on the ground, right? We're going to survey folks, and we're going to collect some data. And what these data collection requirements are right here on the screen. We're going to look at enrollment data, aggregated and disaggregated by a number of items there. We're going to look at program completion rates, school information about the school, their eval ratings. An important one that Darren had mentioned earlier is retention, right? Retention of program participants through the first 5 years of employment. It can be more difficult in our traditional teacher prep programs to really thread that needle between graduating an ed prep program and your employment in the state or even not in the state. For a number of reasons. But for this particular endeavor, because it is an in-district pathway, and these are district employees at the genesis of their educational journey to become teachers, we can actually track these folks from the very beginning all the way through their employment here in Maryland, which is a really great part of the in-district pathway. And finally, we'll have a candidate satisfaction survey as well. So what has happened in the last year or so, from the spring to fall of 2024, MSDE did put out guidelines, and we established what are the criteria that are needed to approve an in-district pathway. We provided a number of informational sessions for all sorts of different stakeholders, whether it's school districts, unions, IHEs, and our alternative prep providers. And one of the people that we talked to was AACPS. And so starting last year, they began to develop an in-district program. As we got closer to that February start date, they looped my team in, and we started to work together and looking at that February 1st date as part finish line, part starter's pistol, so to speak, as far as moving from phase to phase of getting this approved. And we finally approved it within the first week or 2 of May of this year. And so AACPS is going to launch their the state's first in-district pathway this fall. And with that, I will hand this over to Dr. Miller.
Thank you. So I'll just talk about our story. I have some notes because I tend not to go to script, and I could be here for at least 2 hours. So I'm going to use my notes so I can stay on script. However, this journey started around July when we received the information from the Maryland State Department of Education. We grappled with it for a while. We didn't know whether we were going to do it or not. And so we got back together around September. And in September, when we looked at it, and I just kind of skimmed through it, and I said, I think we can do this. So what helped us make this decision? One, we knew the number of conditional teachers was spiking. This is our data right here, and you can see that, it was spiking. Two, we're in a teacher shortage, surprise, right? So we're like, we got to do something. And so we said, we need a way in which we can continue to retain teachers that we recruit, because the teachers that we're losing the fastest were the conditional teachers. And three, we already had a very robust 3-year induction program. So as I looked at the guidelines, I said, well, we already do this, or we already do this. There were some tweaks we'd have to do to ensure that we met the guidelines, but I said, we're already doing it, so it makes sense for us to move forward. So that's when we actually made the decision. It was like late September. So I'm putting this for context in terms of timeline, right? So now it's late September, and we decide, okay, we're gonna move forward with the in-district pathway. So then we said, well, what area are we going to tackle? So we looked at our data and to look at where do we have the most need. And the biggest need was in elementary and special education. But we finally decided to go with special education for many reasons. One, it's hard to find special education teachers. I'm not saying it's not hard to find elementary, but it's hard to find and train special education teachers. Two, the number of students in special education who needed services continues to increase. So we wanted to make sure that we approached an area in which we can meet the needs quickly. Number three, the number of teachers in special education, conditional teachers in special education, was greater in the secondary level than in the elementary level. So that's why we went with secondary. So then what did we do? So my supervisor said, well, Zipporah, you take the helm. And I said, okay. Why? Because I thrive in innovation, and I love to challenge the status quo. So for me, this was like heaven. So it wasn't an extra task. I felt like I was given one of the best activities to move through, okay? So I thought at the time, no, it still is. So developed a timeline, worked with Division of Human Resources. We developed a timeline. We developed a meeting cadence, and we decided that we needed to meet weekly. I know it sounds daunting, but because we were starting late September and we knew we had to submit in February, and then we also knew that that block in December when we have Christmas, Thanksgiving, everything going on, we were going to lose time. We said we needed to meet weekly. Then we needed to talk about who were the persons responsible for what deliverables and what were our actual checkpoints. So once we did that, our next phase was, as we're developing the timeline, we're also thinking about who was our IHE partner, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that. So you can look at our aggressive timeline right here. So even though we got the information in July, we really started like in September, and we really actually started work, I think, like towards the end of September. And that's when our meeting cadence started from week to week. We had various checkpoints that we thought were important. Checkpoints where we met virtually, but checkpoints when we'll come together in person, and checkpoints when we will present to our chiefs and also to our superintendent to say, hey, here's where we are. Should we push the button? Should we say go? Are we submitting it to MSDE? One of the things that I will say for Zipporah was no was not going to be the option. Once we said we were doing this, we're like, we're going all the way. We're going to submit February 1st. So the team was a very diverse team in terms of who we had at the table from the school system. It was a pretty big team, and we had to come together quickly. And so, as you can see, PLOA is the professional development division. We had individuals who were on the RT, who were doing the RT program, individuals who did the new teacher orientation. We have these positions called the conditional teacher support specialists. I had individuals there who work with conditional teachers. From HR, we had recruitment, we had certification. Who else do we have from HR? And we had various team members from HR. We had from the Divisional Special Education, because that was the area that we're going to focus on, and then our partners. So we have partners with various higher education institutions, and we could have gone with either because our partnership is great across the board. However, Anne Arundel Community College, the proximity, Anne Arundel Community College because we had the direct billing. And one of the things is we wanted to remove as many hurdles for that conditional teacher, right? Like going to find a school, pay for the courses. We wanted, when we say you are registered, all you need to do is go to the class, right? So, and two, we had worked with them with the RT program, so we knew that we had a relationship. So we knew communicating with them and making sure that they were a fabric within us working was going to be easy in terms of getting things up and running as quickly as we needed it, as quickly as we needed it to go. MSDE, I'm going to say, was our silent partner, but was our partner all the way, because many times I would look through the criteria and I would think I knew what was required, but sometimes we were way off. So we would call them on a regular basis. Jason and I began, calling every single time. What are we looking for here? Let me give you an example. There was a time when we thought, oh, we got this, here's what we need to do. And then we realized we were far from the mark because they said, well, you need to show how are they acquiring the skill. You also need to show where are they and how are they going to practice the skill. And then you also need to show how are they going to demonstrate competency. All I had was where they're going to acquire the knowledge. So we would have been way off the mark. So things like that helped us to put together the process. So needless to say, at the beginning of the process, when I thought, oh, we could probably already do this, no brainer, we realized that it was going to take a lot of time and a lot of commitment from the team because there was a lot of work that we need to show that even though we were doing it, we needed to clearly show in the plan where it's happening, how it's happening, what we're going to do, and who was going to be responsible for doing what they're going to do. So it was a lot. It was a lot. Were they battle scars? Good ones, but they were, Why were they? And I want to say, when you put together a team, even though we are from the same district, we have different people. We don't work together ordinarily for long-term projects. So coming together quickly, we didn't have the opportunity for what I call to gel, right? As a team, and this was not a one-time thing. We were going to meet, and all of us came with different perspectives. For example, Zipporah's an innovation gal, right? So how can we do it, and how can we do it differently? But then we also had some people on the team where we said, here is compliance. We got to do it this way, So we had two different trains of thoughts, and we had people who were like, do you think we're going to be able to do this? So we had to gel, and it took us doing, so I'm going to say, in leading the team, it took me doing some of those, I'm going to say, team building as we were doing the work. So it wasn't an organic build team, and I had to be intentional about team building as we were doing the work. And sometimes we had to have times for total transparency when I would have to pick up the phone to say, I think we have a misunderstanding. Let's talk through this, right? And we would do that because I knew the team needed to continue. And sometimes we would find that we were on different sides of the spectrum, and we would need to talk through how do we get to consensus? How do we get into consensus? Some of those didn't happen in the big team meetings. Some of those happened with phone calls or one-on-one because we knew that we were going the same direction. We were just thinking about it differently. So developing team is key and crucial because, as you can see, this is a huge team. So then it got to putting together the actual proposal. Content knowledge was something that we assigned to human resources, and they put together the content knowledge, reviewing the transcripts, what coursework would be needed, was praxis, which praxis would they need to take. The induction and mentorship laid under my division, professional learning, because we were already doing the 3-year mentorship program. If I was going to say there was a piece that would have been the easiest to get through, that was a piece, because many of the criteria that was listed, we were already doing the work, and we were doing it over a 3-year period because we have a mandatory 3-year induction period. So it was just a matter of making sure that we added or made formally put in place things in the induction process so that we can show during the monitoring visit that these things are actually happening. Here's how we did it, and here's how we can attest that it was actually done. The professional coursework was our partnership with Anne Arundel Community College. Here is where we wanted to see, or let me say, I wanted to see some innovation happening. And we had to have some courageous conversations, some conversations where we had to sit back and say, okay, let's think through it again. Because we could easily say, take these 8 courses. But one of the barriers to retaining conditional teachers is most of the conditional teachers are in high-need schools. So what happens in high-need schools? They have to stay after school and do a lot of training. What happens in high-need schools? They have to stay after school and figure out the home-school communications, because many times you're working with parents who are working 2 or 3 jobs and you can't reach them. So there's a lot that is happening in a high-need schools. Then there are mandates. For example, if it's a Title I school, there are also some mandates that they need to fulfill that is Title I. So them leaving school in order to go to take a course after school is a little challenging. So how can we use what is happening in the school? How can we use a lot of the experiences that are happening, such as the coaching that is happening? And this was in-depth coaching that was happening with them, where they would go actually visit a class, observe, and then they would come back and debrief with their mentor and talk through, what did I see? What do I do differently? What did I learn? You know, so how can we use that for them to learn some of the concepts? And I heard you talk about classroom management. Like, how can we use that as a classroom management course, right? And so as they're learning their strategies, we're also giving them the research and the pedagogy and everything behind that, and they're learning it there. And how can Anne Arundel Community College partner with us to make that a course? So we were not looking for us to take away courses just to take it away, but we were looking for a way in which they can use what they're already doing to learn the course. We also had some professional learning that was optional to new teachers, but we made that professional learning mandatory for them. And those professional learning opportunities were ongoing. So it wasn't just a workshop, it was ongoing, where they met monthly. And it was actual coursework, like the beginning teacher seminar. And that's where you actually come into the classroom, whether the classroom is virtual or in a classroom, and then actually go to your actual classroom, implement the strategies. Your mentor observes you as you implement the strategies. Your mentors actually coaches you as, you know, with reflective conversations as you're going through them. Then come back again, observe another class, so come back again to learn again. So we used a lot of those for the professional coursework. So where we started with, I think it was like 7 courseworks, seven courses, we were able to narrow it down. I was trying to get it down to 4 traditional courses, but we were able to narrow it down to, I think we got down to 5. I think we got down to 5, which I thought was pretty good, because we're trying to see how can we use what we have, and how we can make sure that it was actually being implemented with fidelity. We didn't want to cut corners, because if we cut corners, guess who it's going to hurt? It's going to hurt our children. And the one thing we're not going to do is we're not going to hurt our children. We want to make sure that they have the best teaching at all times. And so we were very intentional with making sure that this was something that was implemented with fidelity. Many of the courses were pedagogy courses, but also special education courses. But special education also had some in-depth professional learning that they conducted, like learning how to write an IEP, meeting the IEP process. We walk them through that, like hand in hand. And they don't get to just go into writing an IEP. We're literally walking them through that hand in hand. So how can we develop a course using that experience that they have? Then it came down to the competencies. That was also something that was assigned to us, professional learning in Anne Arundel Community College. Here is where, this was my aha moment, where I was like, oh, we don't just have to show that it happened? No. Maryland State Department of Education, Jason and team said, no, we need to show that, 1, where they're going to acquire the knowledge, number 1. 2, where are they going to practice and how will that practice be monitored, right? And then 3, how are you going to ensure that they can demonstrate competency in that area? And if you look at the criteria, they were numerous areas in which we needed to do that. So this is where we spend a lot of the time with the coursework and making sure that we met every single competency. The number of phone calls, the number of times we came back to the table, the number of times we thought we had it, and then we said, oh, we need to go back to the drawing board. It was all well worth it, but it really took time, and took time in this area. Reading instruction was something where we were able to find coursework in that, or programs in which the candidates would sit through to prepare them for the reading practice. And last but not least, the attestation. There were various checkpoints in which we wanted to make sure that this was happening. It was just not one signature. So when you look at the attestation, I think I had a slide with that. See, I told you I don't stick to script. Okay, so with the attestation, there were various individuals, I think you'll see later, who are going to attest to this work happening. So it's not just going to be the principal's going to sign up. It's not just going to be Zippor's going to sign off on it. We were very strategic to make sure that if it's happening in the school, the principal's going to mentor the Right Start advisor, who's their mentor, and make sure that these checkpoints are happening. If it's happening with Anne Arundel Community College or with the Right Start advisors, I was going to work with the senior manager for the new teacher the new teacher support team to make sure, did this happen? When did this happen? Which Right Start advisor was responsible for this before we signed off on this? So there are various checkpoints where we're very intentional about making sure that as we attest to it, there is someone who can say, yes, we know that it actually happened. So we're not just signing off saying that it happened. Why? Because we know that the teacher is the greatest investment in our students. And because of that, it was important to all of us on the team, every single person on the team, that this was actually implemented with fidelity. So here are the courses that we decided on. As you can see, most of them focus on special education. So now we go to the launch. Right now, where are we? We are at a point where we are identifying new teachers. Actually, we've passed that point because we've identified teachers who would qualify. So as teachers are hired, we're saying, hey, you're going to be teaching special education. Here's a program that we have, in-district pathway. Come sit in, see if you're interested. We wanted them to have choice. So we're saying, this is one of many programs. However, we're kind of saying, we kind of want you to be in this program, but we're letting them decide. So we had some, what I call overviews, or should I say, introduction to in-district, so they can understand what the program is. Those are the information sessions. After the sessions, we had them fill out an application. No, this is not like a real, like I say, you have to put in, give us some references, but the application is to gauge interest, right? So we want them to just fill out, are you interested? Are you committed to do the 3 years? Would you be committed to doing? So we want to gauge their interest, and then we're now having HR certification review their transcripts. Next week, as it speaks, we have a meeting set up so that we can see how many people, after the review of transcripts, will qualify for the program. Because if someone, all they need to do is take 2 courses, say, take the 2 courses, right? Right? Yeah, because this is a 3-year. They're still going to get the induction, but we're not going to put them through this and have, if we know that all they need to do is just take the course. So we're actually going to not advise, but make recommendations, and they still decide where they want to, which pathway they want to take. What are some highlights in our program? I've talked a little bit about the tailored mentorship. That is something that already exists. We train our mentors. The mentor training actually started with the program in California. Why is it escaping me right now? New Teacher Center, the New Teacher Center. All of our mentors follow the training and the program for the New Teacher Center. When we hire a new Right Start advisor, they go through training. So we added some additional training so they can understand the in-district pathway, but we make sure that our mentors are ready. They're coming out of the classroom. You are an excellent classroom teacher, but that doesn't mean that you can necessarily coach and mentor. So they need to understand what mentoring is and what coaching is and how they can develop our teachers. There were various in-house professional learning series that we have. So not workshops, I'm going to say series and training series that could be even developed into courses. We put in various evaluation checkpoints. This is not something at the end of the year one, we say, did you meet your check? No. We have checkpoints pretty much monthly up to quarterly. We want it to be intentional because we don't want to lose anybody. We want to make sure that if somebody is losing track, how can we put in, put them back into the emergency room, for lack of a better word, and say, let's help you, because we want to make sure that we retain you. So we have various checkpoints that we have. So before the end of the year one, when the team, when I say the team, that attestation team is sitting together, so we're not attesting at the end of year 3. We're testing year by year, right? So at the end of the year one, here's what we expected them to do. Just like in teaching and learning, we know how the students are going to perform, and if we have been implementing the formative assessments, we're going to have those checkpoints throughout. So by the end of the year, we want to assure that everybody will get a signature that they've attained everything that they needed to do in year one, and they're ready for year 2. With that, their evaluation checkpoints throughout each year. And then finally, there's attestation of achievement. Special education, also they had various courseworks that they, or should I say, learning series, that seminars that they conduct, and we have made those mandatory for them, and then put in various checkpoints also to make sure that they're successful. So if they take the course and they're not successful in the course, we're not going to wait until the end of the course and say, you didn't do well. We're going to work with them throughout the course, because the goal is for these teachers to succeed. We want to keep them in our county, and we want them to be the best, the best for our students. Key mentors. While we have the Right Start advisors, there are other mentors that we're going to have in place. For example, department chairpersons. In this case, it will be the special education department chairperson. Why? Because our Right Start advisor isn't necessarily a content. She or he may have taught biology. He or she may have taught chemistry. However, they may not have been a special education guru. So we have the department chair also serving as a mentor. We have our conditional teacher specialist. We have a special induction specialist, and other individuals from central office who are going to be working as mentors. The Right Start advisor is going to be the key mentor. So if you look at this list, it looks like there'll be a lot of people stepping over one another. No, we thought about that. We have one teacher, and we have so many individuals working with them. The Right Start advisor will know when to bring each one in. Say, okay, so this is the time, and they will know that you will be working with the special education department chair. You may be working with the math department chair, because there's some math coursework in there. So we use the Right Start advisor to be like the liaison in when they bring them in, so that the conditional teacher is not overwhelmed with the number of people working with them. So we thought through a lot of things as we were going through this process. I talked a lot about our coursework, professional learning community. We embedded a professional learning community just for this group of candidates. We want them to come together on a regular basis to be able to have a safe place, one, to learn, another place so that they can talk about their challenges and be free to talk about our challenges, and then for us to be able to intervene within these challenges. So these will be spaces for them to learn, but it'll also be a safe space for them to convene together. We want them to use each other as a backbone as they grow in the teaching profession as well. And then we also have performance assessments. This is something else that we learned as we partnered and worked with MSDE. Performance assessments that they will have to engage in, but this is not something new. We took what they're already doing in the district. For example, as they sit in collaborative planning, where they're using data to guide their teaching and learning process. We have some intentional assessments that they'll be taking to see, are they able to be meaningful contributors in that conversation? You're not just going to be sitting there and be a fly on the wall. You're going to learn, And then also we're going to observe you as you're going to be a meaningful contributor as a part of that conversation. The attestation, here are the key people who will be attesting that this is actually happening. The program coordinator, who's actually someone who's already in-house. The building principal will be looking at what the school, because we can't be at the school every day. So they'll be looking at what is happening at the school site. Myself, Director of Organizational Learning, will be working with Anne Arundel Community College to make sure that many of the things that we have with this coursework at Anne Arundel Community College that translates to some of the experiences that they're doing at the school site, I will be attesting to that. And then an individual from HR will also be attesting to that. All of us will sit together when all of this information is brought together to us to make sure, and I'll be able to speak to Subpiece before we put our signature down on it. So this is something that we've put a rigorous check-in process so that there are checks and balances on every side to make sure that our teachers are getting the best support, because again, retention is the key, but also making sure that we have the best teacher in front of our students. Okay. So what are some of them challenges, considerations, and opportunities? So the submission of February 1st was a challenge for us because we started in October and we knew that in order for us to do this and do this well, we were going to have to really put the pedal to the metal. So we met weekly, but in those weekly meetings, there were assignments that we needed to complete between each meeting space. Two, we're the only district working on a plan. So I couldn't call up another district and say, hey, what are you doing here? You know, we didn't have that, you know. So we were working kind of sort of in isolation, but hey, it was okay. We can do this. Shifting mental models was huge, yeah, because, you know, many times we would have to say, you know what, we're doing something different, but the different will also be a benefit to our district and a benefit to our students. The workload on our current members as we were working through it, and also considering the workload on our Right Start advisors, because while we say we try not to add much new, there are a lot of things they're going to have to be doing differently, such as keeping track of paperwork and making sure that they are intentionally monitoring some of the things that are required from the in-district pathway. We were excited, sorry about the typo, excited about the innovation, and we're mostly excited because MSTE welcomed the innovation, right? So that we're really excited about. So sometimes I was like, you know, could we? And they're like, yeah, let's see how we'll put it down. But, you know, so it wasn't, not hearing no was such a breath of fresh air, right? Hearing try it was such a breath of fresh air. So, but it wasn't a try it where we're just flinging things. It was try it, but we needed to show evidence that, hey, this is something that would work. We wanted to expand the options for conditional and certified teachers, and the autonomy of having it in-house was also a welcome thing for us as we worked through it, because now we actually have control on how we are developing our teachers, and we're working in partnership with a higher ed institution. So it's something that we felt that we were able to alleviate some of the strain that conditional teachers go through, particularly knowing that the conditional teachers that leave us the most when we looked at our data are the ones that are in high need schools. And that's where we have most of our conditional teachers. That is it.
And so for if you are excited about what you're hearing from ACPS and you're thinking maybe we would want to do that in a school district local to us, here's some considerations I just wanted to make sure I put out to the room. And so one of the first things we would ask is that you really take a look at what already exists. Like, what is your school system already involved in when it comes to teacher training? There's a lot of questions on here, like what are your licensure needs? What data is being used to make that determination? But why are the current opportunities available to your folks not sufficient? Like, what is stopping people from getting certified right now? Now, in certain areas of the state, it's because there aren't programs. That's an easy yes as to get after this. But if you're in other areas of the state, you might be surrounded by lots of teacher prep programs. And so really what we're asking you to do, I'm not going to read off all these questions, but what we're asking you to do is really examine what is the current state of things and how is this in-district pathway going to be demonstrably different from what already exists? And what is the problem that this is going to solve that truly the other programs around you cannot? And the reason I'm harping on this is because, as you have just heard from Dr. Miller, it is a lot. It's a huge resource investment to just get this off the ground, let alone to maintain it, right? Because we want it to be not only compliant, but feasible and sustainable, right? And so in order to get there, we just want to make sure you're going in eyes wide open. We don't want people to do a ton of work in these districts just to develop a great program that maybe people don't need or don't want, or there's better options around. So just please consider what already exists first. The other things I would say is to bring my team in early. I think the reason that this went as well as it did, and I think it went incredibly well, is because Zipporah, I think, took a little bit of a risk. We didn't know each other. It was a very, we were at arm's length, kind of, you're at MSDE, I'm at the district. That was our relationship at the time, right? But she took a risk and invited us into her meetings when there was some cussing and fussing and discussing going on. But it really, really helped our team to understand the nuances of what was happening. I was like, what is a right start advisor? What's a right start? I don't know what this is, but it's clearly a key element of this proposal. When we fast forward and we actually got the submission submitted to us, we knew all the nuances, all the details. We understood like all the connective tissue of this program. And so it really helped us approve it in a much quicker fashion than I think if we would have had a lot of follow-up questions. And it was a very clear proposal anyways, right? But I would just say that if this is something you're interested in doing, please, please, please hit my team up early and often. Bring us into some meetings. We can't, and poor Zipporah had to hear me say this a lot, we can't approve this piecemeal. So we can't say this part's approved, but not this part. We have to see it holistically. It's a system of systems, right? And so I would just say, please bring us in early, and we will absolutely try to work to get to yes. And the very last thing I will say is that this is definitely a marathon. This is not a sprint. And just think about any university, right? If you wanted to stand up a whole new program that leads to licensure, even though universities have those systems and processes in place to get a new program approved, they don't approve a program overnight or over a weekend or over 1 month, right? Those are organizations that are poised to stand up new programs. So now imagine a school system who this isn't their main job, right? Their job's to teach kids. So just give yourself a lot of time. So February 1st is the deadline. If it was me, my recommendation is February 2nd, start on your next February 1st deadline so that we have lots of time to work through everything and get you up and running. This is our contact info for my team. Up at the top, you can email one or all of us. And we have included Dr. Miller's email as well down at the bottom if you would like to contact her for any additional questions. And that is it for our presentation. So thank you so much.
Oh, excellent job. All right, thank you so much. We have a few minutes, so I'll open it up to any comments. And we appreciate a great presentation. And your enthusiasm was fantastic. I'm so excited to do this, so I appreciate it.
I was just no questions, just like a lot of admiration for you and appreciation. And I think this is true transformational leadership. Like you mentioned innovation excites you. It's very clear. And we have got to think outside of the box when we're figuring out the teacher shortage. This is like an exemplary example. So thank you for your leadership. And thanks to MSDE for making this opportunity possible, because I think this is the type of thing we're going to need to do to solve the crisis. So thank you.
I wanted to comment that when we submitted February 1st, and this is important, right? At least for me, when you're used to getting all A's, I'm like, yeah, we nailed it, right? They're gonna send it back to us with one or two things. Districts need to know that sometimes what you know does not translate well on paper, right? So when we got it back, I put my head down because I was like, oh my God, there's a lot we need to do. But that's because these were things that we inherently knew, but we didn't clearly define to MSDE. So when they read it, it wasn't clear. So be prepared to take the time, that time between when we got it back. I think we got it back in March because they really went through with a fine comb and we had to make some clear. Be prepared to have that time to go back and do the revisions and then go back, and say, okay, so I need to step away from this because I'm turning it in as though they're with the system and put it in so plain and clear that they can understand that it's happening. So that was another piece that I forgot to say.
Hi. I just wanted to say, first of all, thank you. This is amazing. I know that they say that it only takes, be prepared to take the time, maybe a couple months or so, but it still amazes me that you did this within like a calendar school year. So that was amazing. And the information was wonderful. I just had a couple of questions, one for you, Dr. Miller, and one for Dr. Keys. They're similar, but just follow-ups. Is there in place a timeline of a reflection piece? Like, okay, now we're implementing this. It's been a year that we've started this program and people are in it. How are you going to, as you brought up sustainability, where are you going to do that reflection of it's been working or it is working? Do you have a smaller team? Is it something that you're going to stay with the same team members, or you're going to have a smaller group that will be with it for the entirety of the program?
Great question. Yes, we do have a smaller team that we're convening as we implement. And even with that big team, there was a big team and then there was a smaller group. So we'd meet as a big team and then there was a smaller group that would come together and say, hey, this went well. So we're doing pretty much the same team. As the same thing. However, the group has shrunk to just who will be intimately involved in the implementation, and we will be reflecting as we go. For example, we had an information session. After the information session, took a few days, and then we came back together to say, okay, what do we need to do differently? Also, questions are coming up that we didn't know were going to come up, and we knew that would happen, right? And so, how do we approach this? What do we do for this? So yes, we are reflecting as we go.
And similar question with MSDE, is there a check-in point with you, with the local, so that if a LE starts this program, that it's able to stay for more than just a year, one and done, and that it can continue on? Do you have like a requirement, or is it just a recommendation of please follow up with us?
It is not that, ma'am. No, it is definitely, so when we give them their approval letter, we already put in writing to them that we will convene no later than the end of this first school year to check in with them. However, we have already had a number of informal check-ins by then, or already, and they haven't even launched yet. And so the idea, it's a balancing act, right? At this point, MSDE needs to give this school system the time and space to implement this and see what's working and what's not, right? So there isn't data right now because there's nobody enrolled, right? There's nothing to check in at the moment. And so what I told Dr. Miller was after the new year, I would check in. So it's about halfway through this first school year is going to be our first check-ins to see how things are going. Is there anything they need from us? And then we'll do a more formalized review at the 1 year mark.
Dr. Miller, always a pleasure to be in your company. Thank you so much for what you shared today. I'm hoping that other districts are watching to, consider their launch. And Dr. Key's question about what is a Right Start Advisor, Doctor, and what does that mean? I'm asking you this for the purpose of people who may watch and want to know. Are the Right Start Advisors, or the Right Start mentors, full-time district personnel? Are they retired folks who come back? Like, are they a 0.5? Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because I'm sure people will want to know if they want to replicate something like this.
Great question. Our Right Start Advisors are what I'm going to say in layman's terms are our new teacher mentors.
Yeah.
They are out of the classroom. They had to have taught for a certain number of years before you become a Right Start Advisor. They go through a rigorous interview process and a rigorous training process after the fact. But they are not assigned, they don't have a student workload. So they're not assigned to students, they're assigned to new teachers, and they're assigned to those new teachers for 3 years.
Okay, so these are employees. These are not people who were retired and came back. These are employees who are now paid still by the district, but out of the classroom as instructional positions, yes?
Correct.
Okay.
They're full-time employees paid by the district.
Okay.
And it depends on how many new teachers you have in the school to whether you'd have a full-time or half-time. And when we say half-time, they're not in the classroom, so that means that they might be sharing it with another school.
With another school.
So they are not in the classroom simply because their work involves making sure that they're with the teacher. Sometimes, taking the teacher to see another classroom side by side. So yeah, they do not have a student caseload.
Thank you. Just trying to ask some questions that will help others. And I know that you were the only district. I don't know if you still are. Can our MSDE colleagues share whether they have any inquiries from other? Okay, so you don't. So you don't, which brings me to another question about any anecdotal data that we can receive from our district partners to know what they see as a barrier outside of what our assumptions are, just so, this was intended, had some intentions that, I don't know if we're meeting those intentions, if we just have one district. So, so I'll pause for that. The last sort of comment is, since we have this one district, I would hope that we could bring back Dr. Miller, or colleague, maybe in a year or two, Kimberly's point, to see, how it's going. And then we will have some information about that we could unpack, or follow up with them in some way, because obviously she is busy. And so that, just following up to be able to share, okay, so we have this district, this is how it's going, just to let us know and give us some insight to the process, and at the other side of it, like what they're learning. So thank you so much.
This is anecdotal, so it's not, I'm going to say, data point of view. When you talk to colleagues across in different districts, much of it was they were interested in the in-district pathway, but the time commitment in terms of what it would take to meet that February 1st deadline. And I really appreciate the February 1st deadline, let me say, having gone through it, because it gave us time to make those revisions and to be able to get that approval by May.
Before you bring it.
Before you bring in the new people. I don't see how it would have happened if we turned it in like in March or April, because MSDE is looking at a 3-year plan, and they have to grapple with understanding what the district is going to do. So the time for them to review it and then to give it back to us, and then have time to sit down with us to walk us through the feedback, because they walked us through line by line through the feedback. Here's what we did, here's what we need clarity on, and then we needed to go back and do it. So while we may grapple with, well, should we push the February deadline? I appreciate it more now after knowing the work we needed to do to make sure that we had those revisions done.
Thank you. Well, the more we learn from you, the more we can know about any changes to the just everything that we can learn from you would be helpful. So thank you again, Dr. Miller.
Anyone else?
I was just curious with the performance assessments, are those part of the regular evaluation process for those candidates, or is it a separate from the evaluation process?
Majority of them are part of the regular evaluation process. For example, if you're familiar with SLOs, that is put in there, but we have some intentional guidelines that they have to follow so we can make sure that it meets the criteria for the in-district pathway. They have that our evaluation tool for professional practices. We put in some learning opportunities for them in there as well, so that is a part of it's a part of the evaluation, but the principal will have to see certain artifacts to say checked off. So it cannot be anecdotal. There will have to be some artifacts to show that this is what we saw, this is what we observed, if that makes sense.
I have one other question. Your district was able to reduce the number of courses to 5 through direct billing with Anne Arundel. Does that mean that the district is also covering those courses, or is that a reduced cost? Again, I'm just trying to plant questions that I hope everybody will benefit from, but this is actually a legitimate question that I have for myself. Thank you.
Yes, so we were strategic about that because we knew what their tuition reimbursement benefit was. So we wanted to make sure that when they signed up for the course, we have direct billing with Anne Arundel Community College. So they won't have to take any money out of pocket because it is covered with the direct billing. It's fully covered with the benefit that they receive. We are transparent with the candidates because we told them during the information session, this is part of your benefit, so that they know where the funding is coming from. So if they opt in, they know part of their benefit is being used to cover the coursework. So if they decide a little differently, you know, like if they want to take a master's course while they're doing this, they may have to come out of pocket, but then we didn't want them to come out of pocket for any of the expenses.
Thank you. That's similar to our partnership with elementary. I just wanted to know in general and then also for the benefit of everybody. Thank you so much.
Anyone else?
Yes. Sorry.
Melissa, thank you for waiting.
Do you have an anticipated number of candidates that you expect to work with this year? I know you're still collecting names and data, but.
So, oh gosh, I can't remember off the top of my head. We took everybody for the information session who was eligible. I can't remember what the number was. Of course, best case scenario, we say if we have 20, 25, that will be great. But if we don't, we're still going to move forward with implementing, because let's say we have 10, you know, that we will at least have the room to say we can clean up any kinks we can still that we anticipate with the same. So we're still going to move forward with it. I wanted to piggyback on the question with the tuition reimbursement. We also wanted to make sure that they didn't go over, right? There's only so much they get per semester, or should I say per year. So the courses are spread out so that no money comes out of pocket. So it's not free, but no money comes out of pocket.
Anyone else? All right, considering the time, I know this is a conversation that I'd like to see continue on, so you're always welcome to come back. And thank you again for just a great presentation. I really enjoyed it. One of the things I think when the board passed this, when we were writing the COMAR, is what is it going to look like once someone actually tries it? And I think you did that beautifully. So thank you for walking it through us. We also kind of wondered, what is the COMAR that we wrote? How will that translate into what the requirements are for approval? And that's something I would like to know a little bit more about. And that does get into the weeds a little bit more, but going back to the original board that wrote this, that was a key question we had. And I'll tell you what people thought about was, when you take the COMAR and you put it into the actual process, will the rigor level be so high that it might discourage people from doing it, like it's too much work, it's going to be, God, I have to do all of this? Or would you set it so low, it's a way of just getting your conditionals into, you know, an approval? And so there was a concern as to where that balance would be. And of course, that's not a question we could answer when we were writing the COMAR. It looks like it's an excellent process, but it would be interesting, I think, as this current board, to sort of see what exactly is the application. What's it look like? What level of rigor did you set that you all had to go through? Because that I think tells us a little bit as to whether it captured what the original board that created the COMAR had in common. So I'd love to see more about the application process and also just the review process, how that works. What's the gatekeepers for that? Because that was the concern. You let an in-district come in and you're going to drop the standards of rigor. And I'm not suggesting that happened at all, but it would be interesting to see what we set as that, like how did it turn into that. So I would love for you to come back again, if you don't mind, and kind of walk us through that part of the process with a little more detail.
You're like making my day, Darren, because part of my anxiety for this past year has been, as we approve this stuff, this has been my nightmare scenario / dream scenario. If we get called to the table at a board to justify how we are approving these, can we do that? Is it defensible? So I'm incredibly happy to do that, because our team has done a phenomenal job. I mean, Zipporah can tell you line by line, every nitnoid in task standard. So buckle up. We will give you all as deep as you want to go, Mr. Hornbeck. We're happy to provide that for you as far as.
Well, and I love hearing that
goes.
because you're giving a presentation, unfortunately, on a day when we are missing quite a few people from higher ed. Our superintendents are not necessarily here, so it'd be good to have that, that part when we've got a more balanced board at a meeting. But I love that your comment on that. Thank you. That would be great to have you back. All right, thank you both very much. We appreciate it. All right, and yes, a great round of applause, of course. All right, so now we did, well, and I appreciate your indulgence in going over a little bit, but we do have the review board appointments. I'd push that a little bit later. Kelly, can you kind of walk us through that and tell us what you have and what you need? And thank you all again.
If you'd like to proceed today with the review board appointments, what we ask is that you select 3. We have to appoint 3 members of the licensure review board, and that is like the subsect of the board that hears appeals for licensure decisions that MSDE makes. So when someone disagrees with a decision that's made by the licensure office, they do have the ability to appeal that decision to the review board. And then the review board makes a recommendation to the larger board. So those individuals that serve on the review board serve for a year, a calendar year. So we can either do that today, or I can put that on the calendar for our September agenda.
Okay, let's move that to September. That'll give people a little more time to think. All right, that's great. Thank you for that. Which leads us into the
Can I
September
ask a quick
agenda.
question?
Oh, of course.
Just a quick question. So, Ms. Kelly, Ms. Meadows, if we put this back on September, would you be able to provide a little bit more detail of what the task of the review? I mean, I get
Yes.
what they're doing, but just a little bit more detail about
Yeah.
what their role is.
I can go through the regs.
Yeah.
So I can present an overview of what the regulations state, because there are certain criteria for the members. It's 2 teachers, two teacher members and 1 teacher education faculty. So some members will not be eligible to volunteer for the appointment. But yes, I can definitely provide an overview of what that looks like.
All right, great question. All right, so what else do we have for the September agenda? Did you have anything additional to that? We have been so efficient. Pat yourself on the back, all of you. All right, well, as things come along, I'm sure, if the board will allow Kelly the leeway to create the agenda as necessary as things come up, I think that would be fine. All right, is there any other business for the good of the group? All right, again, thank you for your indulgence in staying late. Have a wonderful start to the new school year. I know a lot of people are going back in a couple of weeks, if not next week. So just have a wonderful year, everyone. All right, without objection, meeting
When
adjourned.
is the September meeting?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have the calendar right in front of me. Sean, do you have it? Do you have it down? Okay, so it will be on the 11th. All right, so on the 11th. Yeah, because we moved it a little further because of the opening of school. I'm so glad someone mentioned that. All right, any other questions, comments, joys, concerns? All right, without objection, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for the extra time. Drive safely. And thank